Normally when you see a tiger and a vulture interact with each other, it's usually in a state of conflict, because a tiger may have made a kill and might be sleeping a little distance away from the carcass, and a vulture might decide to pay a visit to it to partake of its share. And of course the tiger will get incensed and try to chase the vulture away. But in this picture you see a tiger and a vulture sitting in seeming tranquility at such close quarters. Especially the tiger seems to be very calm, and it looks a little astounding and perplexing as to what's going on here. So I just thought of sharing the story behind this rather bizarre sight. This was in Bandhavgarh in the May of 2009 in a place called Rajbehra, which if you're a regular to Bandhavgarh you would certainly be familiar with. And the Jharjara family, as I had mentioned in another video as well, used to spend a lot of time at the Rajbehra Dam, and everybody used to try to head straight there and wait. It was just a matter of time often before they turned up to cool themselves in the water, drink water, and just generally stay there. And so it was this morning. We had been watching them for quite some time. That's the Jharjara female and two of the cubs. There were 3 cubs in the litter, but the male cub was very shy. He would seldom turn up in public eye. So it was the Rajbehra female, what was to become the Rajbehra female, and the cub that was to become Kankati, and the Jharjara female. These 3 tigresses were in the area as usual, when suddenly someone spotted, around I think 9 o'clock it was, what seemed like a juvenile Indian long-billed vulture sitting on a rock at the corner. If you've been to Bandhavgarh and been to Rajbehra, just next to where the dam is, there is a rather large rock, and it is in that corner, on that rock, that someone spotted a juvenile long-billed vulture, and seemed to have strayed from its nest or from its usual roosting place, and it seemed unable to fly. Perhaps it was walking around trying to find a safe place, and it found itself virtually under the nose of 3 adult tigresses. And suddenly, at around the same time, the Jharjara female also spotted the vulture, and cats being full of curiosity, of course she must check it out. So she got up from where she was sitting, circumvented the bushes or the bamboo clump which is right next to the water at Rajbehra, went to right behind the rock, and the cubs joined her there. So there was 3 tigresses giving a lot of attention to a vulture, which of course, to say the least, is extremely intimidating. So the vulture did the inevitable, just tried to escape, but unfortunately couldn't fly. It opened its wings surely, but there was absolutely no flight in them. So all she could do was flop into the water right below. Luckily the water wasn't deep enough to drown the vulture, and it just managed to stay there. Now by this time the Jharjara female lost interest, perhaps because she realized it's neither food nor a threat. So she just went away and sat down a little distance away. But cubs being cubs, their curiosity is never sated. Particularly the Rajbehra female found it compelling to find out more about this weird creature which had strayed into the water, into familiar waters. So she again circumvented the undergrowth from the rock back to the water, waded into the water, and stationed herself right next to the vulture, within sniffing distance, quite literally, and started staring at the vulture. Now the vulture, in defense, opened its beak as widely as possible to look as intimidating as it could, for all it was worth. Obviously weighed only a few grams in comparison to 200 kilos that the tigress weighed. But nevertheless, it's the spunk that matters, it's the attitude. The vulture managed to keep the tigress at bay in this fashion, but after a while the tigress actually relaxed, and she was relaxed, but her curiosity also waned, and slowly, eventually, after a while, she just petered off back to the shade. So after a while the vulture gathered enough courage to start wading slowly towards the bank, and eventually found land and trotted off very slowly towards the bushes. By now it was almost time for us to leave, and just when we were about to, the tigresses got a little curious about the vulture again and went off in pursuit of it, a little away from our view. So we actually never knew what eventually happened to the vulture, but I have reason to believe that it was safe. Of course, I don't know what happened to it after the encounter with the tigers, whether it was able to fly again, whether it was saved. But that's nature. I mean, nature is full of uncertainties. What was most poignant about this site was two critically endangered species from the Indian subcontinent coming together in juxtaposition. And even though they seemed very different, and perhaps the tiger's future looked more assured, in reality that really is never the case. I mean, tigers face numerous uncertainties after they grow up, particularly, and when they're trying to find or carve out a niche for themselves. And of course the vulture's immediate future seemed to be in threat. So it was this strange confluence of their circumstances in a very non-obvious way that made the moment very special to me. So that's just one of the numerous incredible moments that Rajbehra has left me with, particularly in 2009 when the Jharjara family was active there. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll be back with more bizarre stories about bizarre sights and memorable moments from the wild. Until then, thank you very much for watching. See you.